Welcome to Life Stories, where we share tales that touch the heart and remind us of the profound beauty in human connections. Today, we bring you a story of unexpected reunions, hidden truths, and the power of love to heal even the deepest wounds. When Logan, a successful but lonely CEO, crosses paths with a young boy and his mother, his life takes a turn he never saw coming. What unfolds is a journey of forgiveness, family, and second chances that will inspire and move you. Don't forget to subscribe to Life Stories to follow this emotional journey and stay tuned for more heartfelt tales. The late afternoon sun bathed Central Park in a golden glow, casting soft light over the sprawling greenery and bustling walkways. The air was alive with the sounds of laughter, the bark of eager dogs, and the gentle hum of conversation. Amid this lively scene, Logan Carter, the billionaire CEO of Carter Tech, walked alone, his polished shoes a stark contrast to the casual sneakers and sandals around him. Dressed in a tailored suit, he stood out like an outsider in the park's easygoing atmosphere. For Logan, leisure was an elusive luxury. His days were consumed by back-to-back meetings, high-stakes decisions, and the constant pull of a life built on relentless ambition. But today, for reasons he couldn't quite explain, he had left his phone behind and ventured into the park. Perhaps it was the ache of solitude he had ignored for so long, or the growing realization that his success, while dazzling, often felt hollow. He stopped under the shade of a large oak tree, watching a street performer blow bubbles for a group of delighted children. Among them was a boy with sandy blonde hair, his laughter ringing clear and pure as he chased after the shimmering orbs. Something about the boy drew Logan's attention, not his appearance, which was ordinary enough, but his unrestrained enthusiasm. The boy seemed utterly free, completely absorbed in the joy of the moment. Logan's lips twitched into a rare smile as the boy caught a bubble and held it triumphantly in his small hands. For a fleeting moment, Logan envied him. What must it feel like to find such simple joy in the world? The boy turned, scanning the crowd, and his eyes landed on Logan. For a brief moment, they simply looked at each other, the boy's wide blue eyes sparkling with curiosity. Then, without hesitation, he trotted over, his sneakers crunching softly on the gravel. "Hey, mister," the boy said, craning his neck to look up at Logan. His tone was bright and filled with innocence. "My mom has a picture of you in her purse." The words hit Logan like a gust of wind, unexpected and disorienting. He blinked, crouching slightly to meet the boy's gaze. "She does?" he asked, his voice tinged with disbelief. "Are you sure it's me?" The boy nodded enthusiastically. "Yeah, I saw it. It's kind of old, though. You look younger in it. But it's definitely you." Logan's mind raced. It wasn't every day that a child approached him with such a strange claim. Who was this boy's mother? Why would she have a photo of him? And how old could this photo possibly be? His life was meticulously public yet carefully guarded. And this anomaly didn't fit anywhere in the narrative he controlled. "What's your name?" Logan asked, his voice softening as he studied the boy's animated expression. "Sam," the boy replied, puffing his chest out with pride. "That's my dog over there. His name's Maximum. Want to see him do a trick?" Logan chuckled despite himself, charmed by the boy's openness. "Maybe in a minute. Sam, can you tell me where your mom is?" Sam turned and pointed toward a nearby bench. Sitting there was a woman engrossed in a book, her dark hair falling in soft waves around her face. Her posture was relaxed, one leg crossed over the other, but there was a quiet elegance in the way she held herself. When she noticed Sam pointing, her gaze shifted to Logan. Her body tensed slightly, her grip on the book tightening. "That's her," Sam said matter-of-factly. "Her name's Mom. But other people call her Emily." Logan's chest tightened. Emily. The name was like a bell, clear and resounding, echoing through years of memories he thought he had buried. Could it really be her? He hadn't seen or even thought of Emily in nearly 2 decades. But the familiarity of her features struck him with a force that left him momentarily breathless. "I think I need to meet your mom," Logan said, his tone more serious now. Sam shrugged as if this were the most normal request in the world. "Okay. Come on." Without hesitation, the boy grabbed Logan's hand and began pulling him toward the bench. Logan followed, his heart pounding with an intensity he hadn't felt in years. Each step felt heavy, as though he were approaching not just Emily but the person he used to be, the version of himself that existed before ambition consumed everything. As they neared the bench, Emily stood, placing the book beside her. Up close. There was no denying it, it was her. Time had softened her features, adding a quiet strength to the warmth he remembered. But her eyes, still the same deep brown, reflected a mix of shock and apprehension as they met his. "Logan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. It carried disbelief and a tinge of something else. Something unspoken. "Emily," he replied, his own voice strained. "It's been a long time." Neither of them moved, the weight of unspoken history hanging heavily between them. Finally, Emily forced a polite smile, though it didn't reach her eyes. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Neither did I," Logan admitted, glancing briefly at Sam. "But it seems your son has a unique way of starting conversations." Emily's face flushed, and she looked down at Sam, who was now preoccupied with showing Max's latest trick to a small crowd of children. "I'm sorry if he bothered you," she said quickly. "He's curious." "No bother," Logan said gently, shaking his head. "But he did mention something about a photo." Emily's expression shifted instantly, her smile fading as her grip on her purse tightened. "It's nothing," she said too quickly, her tone betraying her unease. "Just an old picture." "An old picture of me?" Logan pressed, unable to hide his curiosity. "Why would you still have that?" Emily hesitated, her eyes darting away as if searching for an escape. "It's complicated," she said finally. Logan wanted to push, to demand answers. But something in her vulnerability held him back. Instead, he took a step back and softened his tone. "I didn't mean to pry. It's just surprising." Emily nodded, her posture relaxing slightly. "I understand. It's just..." "Mom," Sam's voice interrupted, his excitement cutting through the tension. "Max did his trick. Did you see?" Emily turned to him, her face softening instantly. "I saw. Sweetheart. Good job." Logan watched the exchange, feeling a pang of something he couldn't quite name. There was a warmth between them, a bond that was both beautiful and painful to witness. "I should go," Emily said suddenly, breaking the moment. Her voice was firm, but there was a note of sadness beneath it. "It was good to see you, Logan." "Really?" "Wait," Logan said, stepping forward. "Can we talk? Just for a few minutes?" Emily hesitated, glancing at Sam, who was now distracted by an ice cream cart. Finally, she nodded. "Okay," she said quietly. "But not here." Logan nodded, relief and apprehension washing over him. As Emily led the way, he couldn't shake the feeling that this chance encounter was about to unravel a thread he hadn't even realized was loose. And for the first time in years, he wasn't sure he was ready to see where it led. Emily chose a small coffee shop tucked away on a quiet corner of the Upper West Side. Its unassuming charm, a simple storefront with warm golden lights spilling through its windows, offered a sense of privacy. Logan followed her inside, the comforting hum of the espresso machine blending with the murmur of soft conversations. Emily led him to a table near the back, far from the eyes of the other patrons. Logan sat opposite her, unsure of what to say. The familiarity of her presence was almost overwhelming, and the years of separation had done little to dull the effect she had on him. He noticed the subtle ways she had changed, the fine lines at the corners of her eyes, the new strength in her posture, but there was still so much of the Emily he remembered. Sam sat between them, completely unaware of the undercurrents in the air. His attention was focused on a chocolate chip cookie Emily had bought to occupy him, while Max sat obediently at his feet. Emily's hand hovered protectively over her purse, her grip firm on the strap, as though shielding it from the weight of Logan's unspoken questions. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Emily's eyes stayed fixed on Sam, brushing stray crumbs from his shirt and making sure his drink didn't spill. Logan watched her, his mind racing. He had 1,000 questions, but he didn't know where to start. Finally, he broke the silence. "You look good," Logan said softly, his voice cautious. "Life seems to suit you." Emily let out a soft laugh, though it lacked humor. "I'm not sure if that's true, but I appreciate the sentiment." He nodded, glancing at Sam, whose focus was still entirely on his cookie. "He's a great kid," Logan added. "Smart. Full of energy. You've done an amazing job." "Thanks," she replied, her tone guarded. "I've tried." The quiet tension stretched between them, growing heavier with each passing second. Logan knew he couldn't dance around the real question forever. "Sam said something earlier," he began carefully. "About a photo." Emily stiffened, her shoulders tightening as she looked down at her coffee cup. "It's nothing," she said quietly, her voice betraying her unease. "It doesn't feel like nothing." Logan pressed, though his tone was gentle. "You're carrying a photo of me. After all these years. Why?" She hesitated, her fingers fidgeting with the cup's handle. "Because it reminds me of a time when things were simpler," Emily admitted finally, her voice barely audible. "When life didn't feel so complicated." Logan leaned forward, his gaze searching hers. "But why keep it? Why carry it with you?" Emily's eyes darted away, and for a moment, Logan thought she wouldn't answer. Then, with a deep breath, she met his gaze. "Because that picture represents a part of my life I can't forget," she said softly. "A piece of who I was. And who we were." Her words hit Logan harder than he expected. He thought back to the days they had shared, days filled with laughter, dreams, and a love he had taken for granted. The memory was vivid now, but so was the ache of knowing how far apart they had grown. "I never thought I'd see you again," Logan said, his voice heavy with regret. "Let alone like this." "Neither did I," Emily admitted. "But life has a way of throwing surprises at you." Logan let her words settle before speaking again. "Sam," he began carefully, his heart pounding as he asked the question that had been gnawing at him. "Is he?" "No," Emily interrupted sharply, her tone leaving no room for doubt. "He's not your son." The firmness in her voice was like a wall, and Logan felt his chest tighten. He wanted to believe her, to accept her words at face value. But something about the way she avoided his gaze told him there was more to the story. "Okay," Logan said finally, though his doubts lingered. "I'm not trying to push. I want to understand." Emily's expression softened, but her guard remained up. "There's nothing to understand, Logan," she said quietly. "We were young. We made different choices. And then life moved on." He nodded slowly, though he couldn't shake the feeling that something was being left unsaid. Sam's laughter broke the tension as he proudly held up his cookie. "Look, Mom. I made it into a circle before I ate it." Emily's lips curved into a small smile, the tension in her face easing as she turned her attention to her son. "Good job, sweetheart." Logan watched the exchange, a pang of longing stirring within him. He couldn't help but imagine what life might have been like if things had gone differently. If he hadn't let his ambition pull him away from Emily. If he had stayed. "I should go," Emily said suddenly, breaking the moment. Her voice was steady, but there was a note of finality in it. "It's getting late." "Wait," Logan said, his voice laced with urgency. "Emily, please. Can we talk again? I don't know what I'm looking for, but I need to figure this out." Emily hesitated, glancing at Sam, who was now distracted by Max licking cookie crumbs off the floor. "Finally," she sighed. "Not tonight." I need to think. Logan nodded, though the answer left him unsatisfied. Whenever you're ready. As they left the coffee shop, Logan walked a few steps behind them, his thoughts swirling. Emily's evasiveness only fueled his curiosity, and Sam's bright energy left an undeniable mark. Something about their encounter had unsettled his carefully constructed world, and for the first time in years, Logan wasn't sure where the pieces would fall. The next morning, Logan sat in his office, surrounded by the polished sophistication that defined his success. The expansive view of Manhattan stretched before him, but his mind was far from the high-rise skyline. Instead, it was anchored in the memory of Emily's guarded expression and the boy's vibrant smile. Questions swirled relentlessly. Who was Sam's father? And why did the timeline feel so unsettlingly close to when Logan and Emily had parted ways? By mid-morning, he found himself pacing. It wasn't like him to let emotions interfere with his usual razor-sharp focus. But this was different. Emily and Sam weren't just lingering thoughts, they were something unresolved from a life he had left behind but clearly never forgotten. Logan picked up his phone, his fingers hovering over the contacts list. After a moment of hesitation, he dialed the number of someone he trusted implicitly. Daniel Carter, a confident voice answered. Daniel was Logan's go-to private investigator, a discreet and thorough professional who had handled sensitive corporate matters in the past. But this call wasn't about business. I need your help, Logan said, his tone uncharacteristically hesitant. Of course. What's the situation? Daniel replied, his professionalism kicking in immediately. It's personal, Logan admitted, rubbing the back of his neck. There's someone from my past. Her name is Emily West, and she has an 8-year-old son named Sam. I need to know more about them. Daniel paused. Personal matters are delicate. Are you sure you want me looking into this? Yes, Logan said firmly, though his heart raced. I need to understand what I'm dealing with. Just be discreet. You've got it, Daniel said. I'll get back to you as soon as I can. As the call ended, Logan sank into his chair, staring out at the city below. A pang of guilt tugged at him. He hated the idea of prying into Emily's life, of crossing boundaries she had clearly drawn. But his instincts wouldn't let him ignore the possibility that there was more to the story than she had let on. Days passed, each one stretching longer than the last as Logan awaited Daniel's findings. He buried himself in work, hoping the distraction would dull the ache of uncertainty. But every quiet moment brought him back to the same place: Emily's quiet strength, Sam's infectious laughter, and the gnawing feeling that his past was closer to his present than he wanted to admit. When Daniel finally called, Logan answered on the first ring. I've got the information, Daniel said, his tone calm but cautious. Are you ready to hear it? Go ahead, Logan replied, gripping the edge of his desk. Emily West lives in Brooklyn, Daniel began. She's a registered nurse, works long hours at a local hospital, and has lived in the same apartment for about 8 years. Her son, Sam, is 8 years old, born shortly after she moved there. No father is listed on the birth certificate. Logan's heart skipped a beat. He took a deep breath, steadying himself. Go on. There's no evidence of financial support from anyone else, Daniel continued. She's been raising him on her own. By all accounts, she's doing a great job. Her neighbors describe her as private but kind. They say Sam is a bright, happy kid. Logan leaned back in his chair, his mind racing. The timeline was undeniable. 8 years. Sam's age lined up almost perfectly with when Logan and Emily had parted ways. And the absence of a father's name on the birth certificate, it wasn't definitive proof. But it was enough to fuel his doubts. Do you want me to dig deeper? Daniel asked after a moment of silence. Logan hesitated, the weight of the decision pressing down on him. He had already crossed one line by investigating her life. Going further felt invasive. But the questions wouldn't let him rest. No, Logan said finally. That's enough. Thank you. As he ended the call, Logan stared at the phone in his hand. His thoughts a chaotic swirl. Emily had been raising Sam on her own, shouldering every responsibility without so much as a word to him. If Sam was his son, Logan had been absent for nearly a decade of his life, an absence he hadn't even known to mourn. Later that evening, Logan sat alone in his penthouse, nursing a glass of scotch. The sleek, modern furniture and floor-to-ceiling windows that once symbolized his success now felt hollow. For years, he had convinced himself that his sacrifices were worth it, that the solitude was simply the price of ambition. But now, the idea of Sam growing up without a father gnawed at him. The guilt was almost unbearable. Logan replayed every detail of his last conversation with Emily. Her hesitation, the way she avoided his gaze, it all pointed to a truth she wasn't ready to admit. And yet, a part of him understood. If Emily had truly believed she was protecting him or Sam, her decision, however painful, came from a place of love. But that didn't make it right. By morning, Logan had made a decision. He couldn't let this rest. He needed to hear the truth from Emily herself. No matter how difficult the conversation might be, as much as he feared what he might uncover, the thought of turning his back now was even worse. Pulling on his jacket, Logan stepped out into the crisp morning air. The streets of New York bustled with life. But his focus was singular. He didn't know what he would say or how Emily would react. But one thing was certain, this story wasn't over. It was only just beginning. Logan stood outside Emily's apartment building. The modest brick structure a stark contrast to the sleek, modern skyscrapers that defined his world. He hadn't planned on coming here, not yet, but after a restless night filled with memories and questions. His feet had carried him here almost on their own. He stared at the intercom, debating whether to press the button. Part of him wanted to turn around, to leave this conversation for another day. But the weight of uncertainty, the unanswered questions about Sam and Emily, wouldn't let him walk away. With a deep breath, he pressed the button for her apartment. Moments later, the door buzzed, and he stepped inside, his pulse quickening with each step up the narrow staircase. When Emily opened the door, her expression shifted from surprise to wariness. She was dressed in scrubs, her hair tied back, and she looked tired but as composed as ever. "Logan," she said, her tone carefully neutral. "What are you doing here? We need to talk." Logan replied, his voice firm but not unkind. "About Sam. About everything." Emily hesitated, glancing down the hallway as if debating whether to let him in. Finally, she sighed and stepped aside, motioning for him to enter. The apartment was small but cozy, with warm lighting and well-loved furniture. Logan's eyes immediately went to the photos on the walls, mostly of Sam, his wide smile and bright eyes lighting up every frame. There was no sign of anyone else. No clue to suggest a father figure had ever been part of their lives. Emily gestured toward the couch, but Logan remained standing. She crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe. "You couldn't wait until I had time to think." "I've waited long enough," Logan said, his voice steady but tinged with frustration. "Emily, I need the truth. Is Sam my son?" Emily's body tensed, her grip tightening on the strap of her bag. For a long moment, she said nothing, her gaze fixed on a spot on the floor. Then, with a heavy sigh, she finally looked up at him. "Yes," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. "He's your son." Logan felt the air leave his lungs as though he had been punched. He had suspected it, even expected it. But hearing the words aloud was something else entirely. He sank onto the couch, his hands gripping his knees as he tried to process what she had just said. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked, his voice breaking. "Why let me believe all this time that he wasn't mine?" Emily crossed the room and sat in the armchair opposite him. She looked at him with a mixture of guilt and defiance, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "I thought I was doing the right thing," she said, her voice trembling. "When I found out I was pregnant, You were already gone. You were starting your career. Building your empire. I didn't want to derail your life. You didn't think I had the right to know? Logan demanded, his frustration bubbling to the surface. That I might have wanted to be part of his life. Emily flinched but didn't look away. I was scared. Logan. I was young. And I didn't know how to tell you. And the longer I waited, the harder it got. By the time Sam was born, I convinced myself it was better this way. Better for who? Logan shot back, his voice rising. For you. For me. Because it sure as hell wasn't better for Sam. Tears welled in Emily's eyes. But she held her ground. I was trying to protect him, she said, her voice breaking. I didn't want him to grow up feeling like he was a burden or a mistake. He's not a burden, Logan said firmly. And he's certainly not a mistake. He's my son. Emily. I've already missed 8 years of his life. 8 years I'll never get back. How am I supposed to live with that? Emily wiped at her eyes, her shoulders slumping. I know I made the wrong choice, she said softly. And I'm sorry. Logan. I really am. But I can't change the past. All I can do is try to move forward. Logan stared at her, his anger giving way to a deep, aching sadness. I want to be part of his life, he said quietly. He deserves to know the truth. And I need to know him. Emily nodded, her expression weary but sincere. I want that too. But it's not going to be easy. Sam doesn't know you're his father. He doesn't know anything about this. We'll tell him together, Logan said, his resolve strengthening. When the time is right. But I'm not going anywhere. Emily. I'm here for him. For both of you. She looked at him for a long moment. And he saw the walls she had built around herself begin to crack. Finally. She nodded. Okay, she said softly. We'll figure it out. For the first time since their encounter in the park, Logan felt a glimmer of hope. It wouldn't be easy to rebuild the bridges that had been burned. But at least now, they could begin. As he left her apartment that night, the weight of uncertainty was still there, but it was tempered by a new determination. He had a son, and no matter what challenges lay ahead, he was ready to fight for a place in Sam's life. The weeks following their conversation were a whirlwind of tentative steps and delicate negotiations. Logan knew he couldn't walk into Sam's life and declare himself as his father. It wasn't fair to the boy. And it wasn't what Emily wanted. Instead, they agreed to start small, with Logan gradually spending more time with Sam, building trust and a connection before revealing the truth. Their first outing together as a trio was at the park where it had all started. Sam ran ahead with Maximum, his laughter ringing through the crisp autumn air as the dog bounded after a frisbee. Logan walked beside Emily, their steps slow and careful, as if neither wanted to disturb the fragile peace between them. You're good with him, Emily said quietly, watching as Sam cheered Max on. He's already taken to you. Logan smiled faintly, his eyes on Sam. He's a great kid. You've done an amazing job raising him. Emily gave a small, self-deprecating laugh. I've tried my best. But it hasn't been easy. There's a lot I couldn't give him, things I wish I could have. You gave him love, Logan said, his voice steady. And that's the most important thing. The rest, we'll figure it out together. Emily glanced at him, her expression softening. But she didn't respond. For now, the tentative partnership they were building was enough. Logan threw himself into his role as a father with the same determination that had made him a success in business. He carved out time in his busy schedule to meet Sam for lunch, help with homework, and take him to soccer practice. These small, everyday moments were a revelation to Logan. They grounded him in a way he hadn't expected, pulling him out of the relentless grind of work and into a world where the simple joys of watching Sam succeed at a math problem or score a goal felt infinitely more fulfilling. Sam, for his part, was thrilled by Logan's presence. He began to see Logan as a mentor, a friend, and a larger-than-life figure who seemed to know everything about everything. Logan marveled at how quickly they bonded. as though something unspoken between them had been waiting to be unlocked. One evening, after dinner at Emily's apartment, Sam pulled Logan into his room to show him a drawing he had made at school. It was a crayon depiction of their park outings, complete with Maximum, Emily, and Logan all smiling under the trees. Logan's heart swelled as he studied the picture. "Do you like it?" Sam asked eagerly. "I love it," Logan said, his voice thick with emotion. "You're quite the artist." Sam grinned. "Mom says I get it from her. She used to draw all the time when she was my age." Logan glanced at Emily, who stood in the doorway, her arms crossed and a faint smile playing on her lips. "She's right," Logan said. "You're just like her." Later that night, after Sam had gone to bed, Logan and Emily sat in the living room, the television playing softly in the background. The air between them felt lighter, less burdened by the weight of the past. "He really likes you," Emily said, breaking the silence. "He talks about you all the time." Logan smiled, though there was a tinge of sadness in his expression. "I like him too, more than I can put into words. But I hate that I missed so much of his life." Emily looked down at her hands. "I've been thinking about that. About all the milestones you didn't get to be a part of. I wish I had made a different choice." "Logan, I really do. We can't change the past," Logan said gently, "but we can make sure the future is different." Emily nodded, her gaze meeting his. For the first time, Logan saw a flicker of hope in her eyes, hope that maybe, just maybe, they could find a way forward together. As the weeks turned into months, their new routine became more natural. Logan's visits became a regular part of Sam's life, and Emily found herself leaning on him in ways she hadn't expected. He picked Sam up from school when her shifts ran late, helped fix a leaky faucet in her kitchen, and even joined them for movie nights on the couch. Bit by bit, they were becoming a family, not the one they had imagined years ago, but something real and whole in its own way. One Saturday afternoon, as they walked through the park after a particularly lively game of soccer, Sam turned to Logan with a curious expression. "Are you going to be around forever?" he asked, his tone light but serious in the way only a child could manage. Logan crouched to meet Sam's gaze, his heart pounding. "I hope so," he said honestly. "That's what I want." Sam grinned, seemingly satisfied with the answer, and ran off to join Maximum. Logan straightened, his gaze meeting Emily's. She offered him a small, tentative smile. "You're making a difference in his life," she said. "In mine too." Logan's chest tightened. "That means everything to me, Emily. More than you know." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the park in golden light, Logan felt a sense of peace he hadn't known in years. He still had questions, and there was still so much to navigate. But for the first time, the future felt brighter. Together, they were building something worth holding on to, one step at a time. The days grew colder as autumn gave way to winter, but the warmth in their little family only deepened. Logan's bond with Sam continued to flourish, and Emily seemed to grow more at ease with his presence. Yet beneath the surface, Logan knew there was one more hurdle they needed to face, telling Sam the truth about his father. Emily had avoided the topic every time Logan brought it up, her hesitation evident. "Not yet," she would say. "He's not ready." But Logan knew the truth wasn't something they could delay forever. Sam deserved to know who he was, and Logan couldn't bear the thought of keeping the secret any longer. One evening, as the three of them sat on the couch watching a movie, Logan decided it was time to push the conversation forward. Sam was curled up between them, his head resting on Maximum, who had claimed the space on the rug below. Logan glanced at Emily, who met his gaze and immediately seemed to understand what he was about to say. She gave him a small, reluctant nod. "Sam," Logan said gently, his voice steady but soft, "can I talk to you about something important?" Sam looked up, his wide eyes filled with curiosity. "Yeah." Emily turned off the television, and the room fell silent except for the faint hum of the heater. She reached out and placed a hand on Sam's shoulder. Her touch reassuring. "Do you remember how we talked about family?" Logan asked. "About how sometimes families can look a little different." Sam nodded, his brow furrowing slightly. "Well," Logan continued, taking a deep breath, "there's something I want you to know. Something I haven't told you yet because we wanted to make sure you were ready." Sam sat up a little straighter, his attention now fully on Logan. "What is it?" Logan hesitated, glancing at Emily for support. She gave him a small, encouraging smile, though her own nerves were evident. "I'm your dad," Logan said finally, the words hanging in the air like a fragile thread. "I've always been your dad. But I didn't know until recently." Sam's eyes widened, and for a moment, he seemed unsure of how to respond. He looked at Emily, then back at Logan, his expression a mix of confusion and wonder. "You're my dad," he repeated, as if trying to make sense of the revelation. "Yes," Logan said, his voice firm but filled with emotion. "And I'm so sorry I wasn't there sooner. If I had known, I would have been here from the very beginning. But now that I know, I want to be part of your life, every step of the way." Sam was quiet for a long moment, his small hands gripping Max's fur. "So, you're not just a friend?" Logan shook his head. "No, buddy. I'm your dad." Emily reached out, brushing a strand of hair from Sam's face. "I didn't tell Logan about you at first because I thought it was better that way. But I was wrong. He's here now, and he loves you very much." Sam blinked, his gaze flicking between them. "Why didn't you tell me before?" Emily's voice broke slightly as she answered. "Because I didn't want to confuse you. I thought I was protecting you. But I realize now that you deserve to know the truth." Sam looked back at Logan, his expression softening. "You really love me? More than anything," Logan said without hesitation. "You're an amazing kid, Sam. I couldn't be prouder to be your dad." Sam's lips quivered, and for a moment, Logan feared he might cry. But then, to his surprise, Sam launched himself into Logan's arms, wrapping his small arms tightly around his neck. "I'm glad," Sam whispered. "I always wanted a dad." Logan hugged him back, his chest tightening as emotion surged through him. "And I'm glad I found you." Emily watched the exchange, tears streaming down her face. But for the first time in years, they were tears of relief. She reached out, placing a hand on both of them, as if anchoring their newfound connection. For the rest of the evening, they talked openly, answering Sam's questions and reassuring him that nothing about their love for him had changed. By the time they tucked him into bed, Sam was smiling, his heart clearly lighter. Later, as Logan prepared to leave, he turned to Emily, his expression serious but filled with gratitude. "Thank you," he said, "for letting me be part of his life." Emily nodded, her voice soft. "You've earned it." They stood in the doorway for a moment, the weight of the evening still heavy but hopeful. Logan reached out, brushing a tear from her cheek. "We'll figure this out together." Emily smiled faintly, the walls she had so carefully built finally coming down. "Yes, together." As Logan stepped out into the cold night air, he felt something he hadn't felt in years, a sense of belonging. He had a family now, and no matter the challenges ahead, he was ready to face them. For Sam, for Emily, for all of them. As the story of Logan, Emily, and Sam draws to a close, we are reminded that life's greatest gifts often come wrapped in second chances. What began as a chance encounter in a park unfolded into a journey of forgiveness, love, and the courage to face the truth. Logan learned the importance of stepping back from his relentless pursuit of success to embrace what truly mattered, a family he didn't know he had but couldn't imagine life without. Emily's resilience and unwavering dedication to her son showed the strength of a mother's love, while Sam's innocent joy bridged the gap between the past and the future, uniting them as a family. Their story is more than a tale of reunion, it's a testament to the power of empathy and the belief that even broken paths can lead to beautiful destinations. Thank you for being part of this journey with Life Stories. If this heartfelt tale moved you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our channel. There's always another inspiring story waiting to be told. Let us know in the comments, what's a moment in your life where love or forgiveness gave you a second chance? See you in the next video.